Remember the first time you drew one or played hide
Okay,
and seek
we're up
under
next.
one? We spend many moments under trees, which evoke happy memories. But their growth
Sorry?
is affected by the natural cycle and the environment.
Yes,
We
exactly.
have to take
The time is now 8:20 a.m. and when you think Asia, do you think Hong Kong? And when you think Hong Kong, do you think design and creativity? Bonnie Chan Wu is the CEO of the Icicle Group, and she has just returned from the TDC's Think Asia, Think Hong Kong conference held in Chicago last week. And she's been talking to the U.S. about Hong Kong as a design hub. So let's welcome her to Money for Nothing this morning. Good morning, Bonnie. Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit more about what you were talking about at Think Asia, Think Hong Kong.
Yeah, thank you. We were actually also in Toronto as well. Hong Kong used to be an important because of the low labor cost in southern China, factories and all that. But in the past decade, things have shifted. Brands are looking into Hong Kong more as a gateway to take advantage of the explosive growth of the Chinese consumer market. But more recently, we see that brands are looking into taking advantage of the creative talents in Hong Kong. And in fact, in this city, we have over 200,000 people working in this industry. And Hong Kong is in a very unique position of being able to deliver design thinking, mindset, consultative approach, and original and creative ideas to global brands and help them not only delivering their brands in Hong Kong and in China, but help them for global marketing supply chain.
Now, Bonnie, why is that? Why is Hong Kong in this unique position, relative to anywhere else in the world?
Hong Kong has a very well-educated workforce, and in Asia we are relatively most globally immersed, and we have a very diverse culture. And also because our strong command of languages in traditional Chinese, simplified Chinese, Mandarin, and Cantonese, and of course English, it makes a lot of sense for brands coming out into Asia to find Hong Kong as a hub to do all those creative work.
So, of course, it has the language capability, the translation, the work ethic, all of those things. Looking from the outside in, many times when foreigners look at Hong Kong, they think of it as very type A, very work ethic is very strong, but creativity, perhaps not so. You're laughing, so tell me why.
I think that's it's a misunderstanding.
Okay, good to hear.
Yes, and it's changing very fast. You see that Hong Kong has actually invested a lot into the creative industry. Even in the education sector, we have over 20,000 graduates or non-graduates coming into joining the industry every year. And because of the multicultural background and international population, it does help foster creativity in the city in a very different way. And as you can see, we have art fairs and a lot of art and performing arts events that are happening all the time in Hong Kong. It does help with the development of the creative industry.
Now, your company, the Icicle Group, is pretty diverse in what it offers. Everything from, you say that you deliver brand building solutions,
yes,
but it covers digital marketing strategy, print strategy, and so much. Tell us a little bit more about it.
Right. Well, my company started as a print management company, and the positive side of being in a what's so-called dying industry is that in the old days, in the days of glory, we were able to accumulate a very impressive portfolio of clients, and because of the long-term working relationship, we got to understand a lot of other areas that they need help with. And brands are increasingly consolidating their way of buying services from creative companies in order to create a more end-to-end complete experience across media. So it makes a lot of sense for companies like us to provide a multimedia offering to brands to help them deliver consistency across different platforms.
Why is this? Just because there are so many choices and they don't know where to go?
I think for efficiency's sake, as well as brands going global, they need to grow really fast and they want to capture this very fast growth in Asia, they really need to focus on what they are best at. So they need to focus all their energy in producing the best product, producing an edge that consumers can understand. So they tend to outsource a lot more of their functions, including the marketing function. And that means they can't work with so many suppliers. They need to find a trusted one and work very closely with the suppliers as partners to deliver in one go.
Tobias, do you think that if companies here in Hong Kong or China or this region of the world focused more on their communications and marketing strategy, this would be reflected in their earnings?
I would think so. In the end, everybody talks about they never respond to marketing. But in the end, the reason this multi-billion-dollar industry is there, that apparently the truth is different. What I find interesting, Bonnie, is that who would you see as your competitors? Would that be like your classical, mostly European, traditional ad agencies?
That they could be. Advertising agencies are often seen as part of the competitive landscape, but it's quite different because they are very good at idea generation, but not built for marketing execution. So what I'm saying is, ideas continue to be extremely important, but brands are also looking for consistency in production, in execution, production of authentic journalistic content across text and video, rather than campaigns and advertising ideas, which agencies are built for.
And would you aspire to, when you continue to grow and maybe even further dominate the space over here, would you be aspiring to take over also that creative part?
Absolutely not, actually. There are two halves of this pie. So they are very good at ideation, strategy, market research, whereas we are built for efficiencies, production, and operation, world-class operation standards. So brands actually need the best of both worlds to actually deliver their brand across media and across geographies.
But then the cliche still holds a bit that the creative part is being done in Europe and the perfect execution by the A-types in Asia.
Well, creative, this word, I think, again, it can be understood in both ways. Even in execution, it takes a lot of creativity. So ideation obviously has to come from, well, it doesn't have to come from, but it comes from the agencies that you mentioned. But when the master or the key visual is developed, the key message is developed, when it has to be executed across media, it takes a lot of creativity too, in a different sense.
Bonnie, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but quickly to wrap up the segment, can you tell us about some of the biggest trends that brands and companies must be aware of? And for companies on both sides of the spectrum, the bigger listed ones as well as the small and emerging companies, what should they absolutely be aware of when they look to market today?
They absolutely have to be aware of the growth of the Gen Y consumers that respond very differently to marketing messages and tactics.
Gen Y, define that for our listeners.
The younger, the under 25s that are coming into the market, and they are the fastest growing consumer pie.
And how do they respond?
Oh, they look for purposes, they look for social meaning to products. They might not respond to big campaigns, but they want to resonate something in the product and services with their own personality and characters. Those are very different things that brands have been pushing or promoting than in the past. So that is a different approach that brands have to take.
Well, it's certainly good to hear that they're a socially conscious group. Okay, Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us on Money for Nothing.
Tobias, tell us why and what we should be looking out for as we head into the weekend.
Yeah, it's a cliche, but it's got to be Greece. And the good thing, saying it's a 50-50 chance is a very scientific way of saying nobody knows. And that's exactly what happens. Nobody knows, so rationality could be thrown out of the window. We'll see on Monday and Tuesday what comes out of this eternal farce.
Eternal farce, we certainly will. Tobias, thank you so much for joining us today as guest host. Tobias Hexter is the Adjunct Associate Professor in the Department of Finance at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. Whoa, that's a mouthful. And I'm Renita Malhotra Hora, wrapping up for this week's edition of Money for Nothing. And a big thank you, of course, to our producer, Sandra Lam.